you have to really ask yourself, like, are you happy in life? Anything else is secondary, right? Because not all things are meant for you, which is okay. So really, in order to find what's meant for you, you have to allow a lot of things that are not meant for you to pass you by. So that's where I'm at right now.
Pleasure talking to this beautiful human.
One of the biggest life-changing things, and I've had many, as we all do, would be my divorce. How did it change me? It made me a little bit more cautious of people, maybe. I still question myself if that's good or in a good way or a bad way. But then also like a lot more willingness to pay attention to the areas of life where I want to be, which is nice. Always like this calling back into like getting behind myself and using my time wisely when it comes to my purpose. Understanding like boundaries. I think that's the number one thing is like still have the experiences, but just understand how to have them in a slightly different way. So it's not that I'm like in a negative way, because cautious, typically you're going to think of that as like, oh, this person's like watching out. But maybe that's not such a, like the word that I'm looking for. Maybe the word is just more like more selective, or, you know. And then that word is always like boundaries too, because even if you think you actually never do. But when you're like doing what you need to, then it doesn't matter really. So a lot of what I'm going through is an allowance into everybody to be doing their own thing and not too much focus on that. I think that's like one of the big game changers after that. It was like, and which a lot of people, once you become very focused, like you're not as much available, which I'm not. It's very easy for me to say no nowadays because of my energy is like very valuable. So I'm trying to learn how to like honor that, because there was so much given away. It's like my time and energy. I want a very like unique, different thing. To me, it always goes back to this, like, if I actually really want what I want in a relationship in a very authentic way, then I have to just like kind of wait for this person to, because anything else is just like, but I think there's always like 2 or 3 things high up on my list that are like musts now, and it's things that might not be like, with the work that I do, has to be somebody that can understand that. So there's all these like different aspects when it comes to that, and if those things for me don't align, then basically it's like kind of
doesn't feel like home.
Yeah, no, at this point, like I kind of have a certain amount of expectations for myself when going into partnership. I love being the observer, and now that I've actually in the dating that I've done, some that felt very good, and then other ones that I realized that it was just a moment in time, which is okay, but like allowing that, because if it's not, I think all of us have maybe done it at one point, but you just like have this intuition, but you don't go with it, and then you realize you're a couple years down the relationship, and then that very thing comes back up. So I try not to do that anymore. At least like pay attention to the things that you feel. Maybe give some time to it, but don't give your like soul to it. You know, like so there's this clear distinction to me to not get so emotionally attached to, because it's always like those unhealed parts of ourselves that like want the attention.
Sure.
Sure. It feels good. I want to be loved. And it's like, well, you always have to question yourself. Why do you feel like that? But all because there's some like lack of
I agree.
Self-love, which is for me, I'm more interested about that right now. It's like digging into that.
Those holes, those little patches that could be giving love to yourself instead of finding it from the external.
And it feels good to me because I'm always feeling like when you stop looking is probably when it will most authentically show up.
Right.
But for me, I'm not like even anything that implies wanting something like that right now, or even trying to understand it. I'm just so like okay with just allowing things be. It's a beautiful place. Like you see people as not matches, or like I've been this whole new thing of just seeing people as people, even if they're like, if it's very attractive or whatnot. I'm like, oh, this girl's very attractive, but let's listen. Like, and then you're like, oh, okay, well, like you either see an alignment or you don't. But it's all like been about that, like a lot of observing, listening.
It's really powerful what you're saying. I think that we tend to maybe follow our intuition, our dicks, our quick brains, whatever you want to call it, in a way that you feel something warm. And a lot of us, like myself, like I think all of us do this, like don't give time to observe what this person out there actually is, whether it's business, intimate relationship, whatever. So I think that's really powerful to be able to like be in a place, get to a place, like that sounds like a beautiful lesson.
I mean, really, I think that reaches into all aspects of life, because whenever you're like externally looking for things to make you happy, it's like there's this thing of like true, like love is beautiful, and all the external forces of love that you can experience. But at the end of the day, like life is all about like nothing's permanent. You know, so the more that you understand that, and you can be in love with just like the fact that you know that everything passes and everything is not meant for you, it becomes so much more like peaceful of a journey for yourself, which I've been like really enjoying the thought of that. Basically, like the thought of falling in love with your own inner peace more than anything. By being careful not to like putting up any like firm walls. Like I say that with like a lot of love, not with like a closed door. If not, then why just be single? I mean, whenever you're like, because it's all energy at the end of the day. If I could give that same amount of relationship energy to myself to fulfill my dream, then that's where I'm going to be right now. Anything short of somebody magical coming into my life that really meets me where I'm at, I'll wait. You know, and if it doesn't happen, that's okay, because I'll be doing my dream. Which I think is always like the thing, is like whenever you're really authentically trying to live your purpose in life, then you don't need to worry about it, because it'll probably almost certainly happen.
Right.
Because people love to see you living in your
There's
purpose, in your dream.
grateful than
Yeah, exactly.
watching their habitat in their moment, truly like expressing their inner life, whatever that is.
Which is always like a testament to that thing of like not allowing yourself to get lost in a relationship, like keeping those aspects of you alive. Because they're attractive.
Right.
You can't just abandon that. And even if it's outside of a relationship, you can never abandon that no matter what anyway. They call it like our inner child, like those parts of you that feel excited to be you, right? I mean, more than like letting anybody else down or not finding a mate, you have to really ask yourself, like, are you happy in life? Anything else is secondary, right? Because all those hardships that I've went through, which I couldn't even start a list and I wouldn't want to, it just always is like, as they say, no good or bad, like opportunity for growth, right? So I always kind of joke, because with the work that I do, like the kind of like school you could go to, but it's like the school of hard knocks. Like I went to that school. I mean, I went to college and everything as well, but I definitely went to the school of like going through the hard stuff. Yeah, but I don't regret any of it. I know I wouldn't be the person I am today if I didn't go through those things.
Right. And I think that's a really healthy and beautiful way to look at it.
Yeah. It's interesting, because people actually have to hear that coming from a paraplegic and be like, wait, you mean you don't like, and with your injury? And I'm like, no, absolutely not. Like I actually did it doing something that I loved. So, they're like, because they're like, I'm sorry. I'm like, I'm not. I was living life.
Yeah.
Loving life. Like even when I broke my back at 24, if I would have died in that moment, it would have been all right with me, honestly. Because I was actually living life so fully in those moments, and still much more then because I was adrenaline junkie somewhat. But I had lived so fully at 24. Most people will never experience that throughout their whole entire life. I always go back to this saying, it's not the years in your life, but the life in your years. So no regrets ever. I just always go back to this thing of like how when I got injured, I got on opiates, not right away, but I remember something common that was said was like, well, you broke your back. If anybody deserves to, it's you. And that's what it reminds me of, because it's like, well, you were in a wheelchair, you deserve to be regretful in life. And it's like, no. And I don't deserve to be an addict or anything else either. You know, so for me, I always have to like really realize, you know, because it's all like, when you're in a wheelchair long enough, you start to hear the language and pay attention to people's behavior and stuff, and you realize like what the expectation or the stereotype of somebody in a wheelchair. Do you need help opening the door? As I'm like dropping down in a half pipe. No, I don't need help opening the door. You know, like so it's a lot of that. But I mean, I always go back to this thing of like nobody has no like ill intentions when they're doing those type of things. It was such a big teacher for me to realize that when people are doing that, they're just only trying to express some form of love in the best way that they know how. You know. So even if they're say like, "Don't you regret what happens to you?" It comes from a place of like, they want to feel sorry for you, but it doesn't come. That's the thing, is I always have to go back to that. Don't take things personally. People expressing with the language that they know how, you know. So, and that leads me to another point, is a lot of people actually think they're going to come to me to hold space for me. Strangers, like, you know, are you okay? And I'm like, well, apparently you're not. Sit down. Let's have a talk. No?
That's funny. Yeah.
Yeah. Turns into that sometimes. But I'm like, well, if anybody's going to do it, let's sit down and have a chat.
What do you need, friend? That's awesome. Thank you for chatting.
Of course.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.